This is chapter 12 of Matilda. Matilda. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the picture first. And I want you to take a look at it. What do you think? Who do you think this tall person is? And where do you think the setting of this picture is at? So be thinking of that as I read the chapter called Lavender. In the middle of the first week of Matilda's first term, Miss Honey said to the class, "I have some important news for you, so listen carefully. You too, Matilda, put that book down for a moment and pay attention." Small, eager faces looked up and listened. "It is the headmistress' custom," Miss Honey went on, "to take over the class for one period each week. She does this with every class in the school, and each class has a fixed day and a fixed time. Ours is always 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoons, immediately after lunch. So tomorrow at 2 o'clock, Miss Trunchbull will be taking over from me for one lesson. I shall be here as well, of course, but only as a silent witness. Is that understood?" "Yes, Miss Honey," they chirped. "A word of warning to you all," Miss Honey said. "The headmistress is very strict about everything. Make sure your clothes are clean, your faces are clean, and your hands are clean. Speak only when you're spoken to. When she asks you a question, stand up at once before you answer it. Never argue with her. Never answer back. Never try to be funny. If you do, you will make her angry. And when headmistress gets angry, you had better watch out." "You can say that again," Lavender murmured. "I am quite sure," Miss Honey said, "that she will be testing you on what you are meant to have learned this week, which is your 2 times tables. So I strongly advise you to memorize it when you go home tonight. Get your mother or your father to hear you on it." "What else will she be testing us on?" someone asked. "Spelling," Miss Honey said. "Try to remember everything you have learned these last few days. And one more thing. A jug of water and a glass must always be on the table here when the headmistress comes in. She never takes a lesson without that. Now, who will be responsible for seeing that it's there?" "I will," Lavender said at once. "Very well, Lavender." "Very well, Lavender," Miss Honey said. "It will be your job to go to the kitchen and get the jug and fill it up with water and put it in a table here with a clean empty glass just before the lesson starts." "What if the jug is not in the kitchen?" Lavender asked. "Oh, there are a dozen headmistress jugs and glasses in the kitchen," Miss Honey said. "They are used all over the school." "I won't forget it," Lavender said. "I promise I won't." Already Lavender's scheming mind was going over the possibilities of this water jug job had opened up for her. She longed to do something truly heroic. She admired the older girl, Hortensia, to distraction for the daring deeds she had performed in the school. She also admired Matilda, who had sworn her to secrecy about the parrot job and she had brought off at home. She also had the great hair oil switch, she admired Matilda, who had sworn her to secrecy about the parrot job and she had brought off at home. She also admired her for the great oil hair switch that bleached her father's hair. It was her turn now to become the heroine, if only she could come up with a brilliant plot. On the way home from school that afternoon, she began to mull over various possibilities, and when at last the germ of a brilliant idea hit her, she began to expand on it and lay on her plans with the same kind of care the Duke of Wellington had done before the Battle of Waterloo. Admittedly, the enemy on this occasion was not Napoleon, but you would never have gotten anyone at Cruncham Hall to admit that the headmistress was a less formidable foe than the famous Frenchman. Great skill would have been exercised. Lavender told herself the great secrecy observed if she was to come out with this idea. There was a muddy pond at the bottom of Lavender's garden, and this was the home of a colony of newts. The newts, although fairly common in the English ponds, is not often seen by ordinary people because of their shy and murky creature. It is an incredibly ugly, gruesome-looking animal, rather like a baby crocodile, but with a shorter head. It is quite harmless, but doesn't look it. It is about 6 inches long and very slimy, with a greenish-gray skin on top and an orange-colored belly underneath. It is, in fact, an amphibian which can live in or out of water. That evening, Lavender went to the bottom of the garden, determined to catch the newt. They are often swiftly moving animals and not easily to get a hold of. She laid on the bank for a long time, waiting patiently until she spotted a whopper. Then, using her school hat as a net, she swooped and caught it. She had lined her pencil box with pondweeds, ready to receive the creature, but she discovered that it was not easy to catch the newt out of the hat and into the pencil box. It wiggled and squirmed like a quicksilver, and apart from that, the box was only just long enough to take it. When she did get it in, at last, she had to be careful not to trap its tail in the lid when she slid it closed. A boy next door called Rupert had told her that if you chopped off a newt's tail, the tail stayed alive and it grew into another newt 10 times bigger than the first one. It could be the size of an alligator. Lavender didn't quite believe that, but she was not prepared to risk it happening. Eventually, she managed to slide the lid of the pencil box right home, and the newt was hers. Then, on second thoughts, she opened the lid just the tiniest little bit so that the creature could breathe. The next day, she carried her secret weapon to school. She was tingling with excitement. She was longing to tell Matilda about her plan of battle. In fact, she wanted to tell the whole class, but she finally decided to tell nobody. It was better that way because then no one, even put her under the most severe torture, would be able to name her as the culprit. Lunchtime came. Today it was sausage and baked beans, and that happened to be Lavender's favorite, but she couldn't eat. "Are you feeling all right, Lavender?" Miss Honey asked from the head of the table. "Oh, I had a huge breakfast," Lavender said. "I really couldn't eat a thing." So here is a picture of Lavender catching that newt. You can see how it shows the actions with the lines and the drops. Immediately after lunch, she dashed off to the kitchen and found one of the Trunchbull's famous jugs. It was a large, bulging thing made of blue glazed pottery. Lavender filled it half full of water and carried it in, together with the glass, into the classroom and set it on the teacher's table. The classroom was still empty. Quick as a flash, Lavender got her pencil box from her satchel or her book bag and slid open the lid just a tiny bit. The newt was lying quite still. With great care, she held the box over the neck of the jug and pulled the lid fully open and tipped the newt inside. There was a plop, and it landed into the water. Then it thrashed around wildly for a few seconds before it settled down. And now, to make the newt feel more at home, Lavender decided to give it all the pondweed from her pencil box as well. The deed was done. All was ready. Lavender put her pencils back into the rather damp pencil box and returned it to the correct place on her desk. Then she went out and joined the others on the playground until it was time for the lesson to begin. And so here's a tiny picture of Lavender adding the newt to the water jug. So the next time we read, we're going to be reading the weekly test. So remember to write down what happened at the beginning, the middle, and the end of this chapter. It was a short chapter, so you shouldn't have more than just a couple sentences for each section. Thanks for listening.